So Rick here from Artofguitar. So privileged to have Marisa Sardo here. I mean, you're one of the most influential classical guitarists of the moment. Over 20 international first places, touring the world, and we're privileged to have you here.
The privilege is mine. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your journey, how you got to where you got to?
Yeah, so I started playing when I was 4 years old, and I knew from then I was always going to be a musician. I always, I grew up basically with the classical guitar and with music in general, and there was no doubt in my mind ever that this was going to be my career and my field. And so I've gotten several degrees in guitar. I continued it, throughout my education, and now it's my full-time job, teaching, performing, touring, everything.
So 4 years old, straight onto the classical. It wasn't like me. I had a recorder when I was 4 years old.
No, I started straight onto classical guitar,
right.
But I actually also have played other instruments too. I was pretty proficient in bassoon for a while too.
Okay.
I started when I was in about 5th grade, and I continued throughout my master's. I actually have a dual degree during my bachelor's in bassoon performance, and I have a graduate minor in bassoon when I did my master's. So music has always been with me, but guitar became my career. And I'm happy for that because look where I am now.
It's incredible. I mean, I've been, researching your career, watching a lot of your performances on your channel. I would urge the viewers to go to your channel and watch some of the performances. Are absolutely magical.
Thank you.
I think I was very naive about what the classical guitar could do, really. But could you tell us a bit about the inspiration and why it is that the classical guitar has kind of hooked you so much compared to, because you kind of have, acoustic bass and electrics that play in bands and they're slightly interchangeable, and then classical seems to be in an area of its own. And
yeah, definitely. I come from a musical family. So on my mom's side, my great-grandfather was a mandolin player, so it's kind of in my blood there. And then my dad was a guitarist too. And so he was actually and he played a little bit of classical, but more other styles. And he was my first teacher at 4. And so when I was 4 years old. And so when my parents kind of saw that I started to develop a talent for it, they continued me on to private lessons after that, more strictly into, classical education.
Great. So you right from the beginning, you were taught, because
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I grew up around music. I remember when I was younger, my parents used to put on like classical music CDs for me to go to sleep, and that continued well into even my teenage years. I remember. So I grew up, surrounded by music and classical music, but. My dad was not a classical guitarist, but he actually played like heavy metal, and so I grew up with heavy metal too. I always loved metal. Since I was 4 years old, I grew up with a house filled with metal music and classical.
I was wondering about that. Was going to be one of my questions. Right? What's on your playlist? Do you listen to electronic dance music or heavy metal? Or
heavy metal.
Really heavy metal and classical guitar.
Yes. They're twin genres, right? They're very, very similar. And of course, all music comes from classical, but metal seemed to have a very similar structure to classical, and so I think that's why I was drawn to it so much. There's also a huge variety of genres within metal music.
Yeah.
During my teenage years, I was really drawn to symphonic metal, which really combined the elements of classical and orchestration and choirs and all of that, and operatic elements with metal.
Yeah.
But now I like all kinds of metal. As long as there's metal to it, I listen to it. Yeah.
Another thing that showed me how naive I was, one of my questions is going to be like, who is your favorite classical composer? And in my for the classical guitar, and for me I always just thought Bach straight away. But apparently you're not even allowed to. He wasn't a classical guitar composer.
No.
He composed for different instruments that then became very.
Yes.
You can tell the story better, but
the guitar didn't really exist back then in the way that we have it now.
Yeah.
So Bach wrote, for lute. He wrote for lute a lot, and of course for violin and cello and piano and orchestra and all the instruments. But the guitar that we have today didn't exist back then. And so most of our music, all of our music from Bach is transcribed. So we play a lot of the lute suites, of course, because that's kind of the most direct transcriptions, but we play the cello suites, we play violin suites too.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think people don't realise that. People know the guitar is one of the newest instruments, and you know a lot of the classical composers that you hear about, Beethoven, Mozart, Paganini, you know, all of them I've heard classical guitar pieces by them, you know, but
the classical guitar is both one of the newest and one of the oldest instruments too, because if you think of like troubadours during the Renaissance era, they were playing on the lute, right? That was the instrument of the time, and that's the predecessor too with the classical guitar. So and before that also the instrument, the lute, the Western lute, evolved from the Arabic oud. So yes, exactly. We just kind of in this area where we are now.
We actually did a video on that with Paul David, a great friend of mine, and it was about how really the Eastern scale and the oud predated the development of the Western scale, and then the lute and it became the guitar, and you're here in the seat of where it all started, really.
Yes, I mean it's one of the oldest instruments in the world. You know, the origin is the Arabic oud, which then moved to Morocco, which then moved up through the Moorish conquest to Spain and became the Western classical guitar that we have today. But it's also, you know, kind of a modern instrument too, which comes from Segovia, because Segovia really kind of brought the guitar, the classical guitar, on the map as an instrument that, you know, is a career and can be studied in universities. And so from him, we have this huge world of classical guitar music and classical guitar styles and schoolings and all of that. So we just, you know, quite new too. This is the 20th century, you know, so end of the 20th century. So it's
I've listened to Andres Segovia.
Yes, he's an amazing, you know, he's the father of the modern guitar, and one of the pieces I'm playing now is an homage to him, actually. Written by a woman composer, because that's what my project is now. I know we're going to talk about that too, but one of the pieces is an homage to him, and actually my schooling comes from the direct line of Segovia too, because though I didn't study with him, you know, I never met him, I studied with Oscar Guilla, who is a direct pupil of Segovia, and one of, if not the most influential guitarists today, of all time, I would even say. I mean, I'm biased. He was one of my best teachers and one of the best teachers, but he is a direct line.
What a privilege to be taught by a legend like that.
Yes.
But yes, so you did just mention something that I was going to come on to. But first of all, the difference between kind of composition and doing your own compositions versus playing a piece of Bach or Beethoven music or writing your own. Can you tell me a little bit about that with classical? I think that's quite different than with, you know, the acoustic guitar and the electric guitar, which seems to be much more, you know, people will just kind of jam around, whereas I think the classical guitar is much more structured around how you...
Yeah, so like composition, it's a whole different category, a whole different area of study, which is very different than what we learn in you know, universities and our conservatories, because we learn to recreate, not really to create. We have, you know, in our education, of course, it's kind of part of our general music education, learning how to compose or how to, you know, do voice leading and counterpoint and all of that. But in terms of me writing my own music, I don't really do that. I used to. I did a minor in music composition, but now, and so I have written some music before, and I want to get back to it. But it's, you know, it's a whole full-time job being a composer, and so it's different than what most classical guitarists do. And improvisation, like what people do on acoustic and electric, even in jam sessions, it's not really part, unfortunately, of our culture. So I never really learned how to improvise. I'm getting into it now, but it's not really.
Whether it's unfortunate or fortunate, it's just it struck me as one of the major differences that really separates out the classical guitar.
I think everybody should learn to improvise, because that whole setting of just being among friends and jamming and creating some truly beautiful music, I think there's nothing like that.
I mean, are the classical guitarists that do that?
Oh yeah, oh
get into
absolutely,
that?
absolutely. I am
Yeah.
one of the few that doesn't, I think,
Okay.
because again, I've never really, since I started with classical, I never
Yeah.
really learned how to improvise too much, but many of my friends
Okay.
pick up their guitars and start jamming in different styles too. You know,
Okay.
I've been in metal jam sessions with friends too. That was pretty cool, I gotta
Really?
say, on classical guitar, and they were literally playing like metal covers together and improvising like solos
That's
in
nice.
metal style with classical guitar. That was a really cool thing.
And do you only play classical guitar? Do you have any other guitars in your home that occasionally you pick up just to try out, or just is it so specialized and you know the position of the guitar and everything that you just really want to stick on that because it keeps you in the groove for it?
So I pretty exclusively play classical, and most of the
Yeah.
instruments I have at home are classical, but I do have an acoustic guitar at home and an electric guitar.
Okay.
And I've played them a few times. You know, I did a brand deal with an acoustic guitar company, and you know, we did some posts together, which was really fun. And with electric guitar, I don't really play electric guitar. It's a very different style than classical,
Sure.
even more so than acoustic. But I did play it one time when I was in my high school orchestra. We did like an orchestra version of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra piece, Christmas Eve Sarajevo, during Christmas time. And that piece it's like a heavy metal version of Carol of the Bells, right? And I did the electric guitar solo part.
Is that on your channel?
I think I put a little bit of like that snippet, you know, but it was a long
Okay.
time ago, so I don't even remember where the full video is, and it's not good quality.
Okay.
But I think I put a little snippet in there in my Instagram somewhere in the weeds.
I'll try and have a look at
Yeah.
have a look for it. So, how hard is it to do what you do? Because I know
Ooh, that's a question.
you know, there's a lot of, in the past 2 decades, you know, I know a lot about, again, the other guitars and other musical instruments and being in a band and how hard it is to make it in the music world and how different it's become. I mean, you're on the road all the time. How important is social media, that kind of thing? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very difficult question, and it's a loaded question because, you know, there are so many people who study classical guitar as a career in college, and when you get that degree, it opens a lot of doors. It really does. But it's not, you have to put a lot of work in order to open those doors for yourself, because the degree helps, but it's not all there is to it. Talent helps, but it's not all there is to it. There's a business side of music that unfortunately I don't see a lot of education in our universities and conservatories that is so vital to becoming a career musician.
Yeah. Because you have to dedicate.
Yeah.
Well,
You have to.
How much time do you have to dedicate to it? That was
It's a
question
full-time
mark.
job. It's a full-time job
So
for me. You know,
You play every day. Do you do it
Yes.
in like a few hours a day, or you do it in half days? Or
yeah,
you,
I mean,
you know,
right now,
literally-
because I'm on the road so much, I don't practice as much as I would like to. I do between 4 and 6 hours a day when I'm settled, you know. But that's, you know, that's not all there is to it, right? You know, of course, I have to know my music well before I go on tours, and so I really study hard. And you know, when I'm learning new music, I usually push 6 or more hours a day. But I think the bulk of my job is all of the like management side of being a musician too, because I am my own manager. And so I am the one who is creating my own opportunities. I'm the one who writes my own proposals and signs my own contracts and negotiates my own contracts and creates my tours worldwide.
Which is also becoming more prevalent, I think, across the whole of the music industry now, isn't it? Because people have different routes to the customer that you didn't have before, which is good, but it's onerous. You know, you don't have a manager to take care of things for you.
I see why people get agents, and I've been offered a few times actually I've had some agencies reach out to me and say, we want to sign with you, but I've actually turned them down. At least right now at this point of my career, I'm still young and I'm still developing my career, but I like the way that I manage my tours, and you know, I'm basically bringing myself to 5 different continents to play this year alone. And so I think I've gotten into a routine where I know the market and I know the field now that I don't think I need an agent yet.
Yeah.
But as it gets busier, because it's getting busier, I think that's definitely something that I'm going to be considering. But I think everybody should, when you're learning to be a classical guitarist, they should be their own agents at a certain point too in their career, so they understand how it works, because it's a lot more writing than you think. It's a lot more negotiating than you think, and it's a lot of social media and website building and all of this too. I mean, you're basically doing many jobs in one. But it's really, once you...
that's great advice as well, but it shows how time-consuming it is. If you need to practice really half of it every day, and then you're also doing your own management, you're doing your own scheduling, you're also on the road a lot.
Yes, so I learned how to prioritize my time and prioritize certain things, right? So when I am learning new music to go on tours, that is most of my day, that is most of what I'm doing. When I know my music very well and I need to just kind of polish them and I practice a little bit less during the day, then I spend more time creating my tours, and I usually book about a year or more in advance too, so I'm kind of thinking into the future and how to organize myself and organize things. But it's a lot of hard work. Trust me, it's a lot of work, but it's so fulfilling, because once you're there traveling and performing, I get to perform for people of many different cultures all over the world, and my programs are received very well with open arms and kindness, and that's just the best feeling ever.
So that's what drives you. It's to perform in front of people and be able to share what you're creating with them, and to see them enjoy that and embrace that.
I feel so alive when I'm on stage and I see my audiences. It's like, I don't know, I have a persona when I'm on stage that it's me. I don't feel like I'm a different person. In fact, I feel more elevated as myself when I'm on stage, because I feel like I'm really connecting in a way that is so enlightened with my audiences, more so than even just chatting like this, you and me. I feel like when I'm connecting with music, I'm really connecting on a much deeper level with everybody, regardless of culture, regardless where I am in the world. That's how it works, and that's how I feel, and it's a beautiful thing, really.
And so that's the thing that just keeps you going.
Yes.
And is there a progression even further? I mean, as we opened up, you're already phenomenally successful, extremely well known in the category, and where do you go from here? Is it more competitions? Is it more concerts?
I think I'm pretty much done competing. Okay. So competition's not so much anymore. I think my career has continued beyond competition. Sure. So going back to competitions would, I feel like, be kind of a step back in where my career is going. But I teach as well. Another full-time job that I do is as a teacher. And right now I teach almost exclusively online. I do also offer some in-person lessons, but because I travel so much, it's mostly online. But the next step, I would love to become a university professor of classical guitar somewhere in the world. I'm looking everywhere in the world for that opportunity, for sure. I think that would be the next step, and also to get my doctorate degree in guitar as well, which would really open up the doors for me to be a professor.
So you have a quiet life then?
Yes, it's a very quiet and mellow life.
But tell us what brought you to Dubai. I mean, we're so privileged to have you here. We've got the podcast. You're going to do a gallery session for us. We've got a concert on Friday night. We've got an outdoor concert on Saturday. I mean, it's fantastic. We're so privileged to have that. How did that come about?
So I was planning a tour of the Middle East, right? And I have a lot of connections in Egypt because I played there back in August last year. And so those connections kind of helped me to get concerts in Egypt. And then I thought, let me branch out beyond Egypt and try to hit more of the Middle East too. So I have a few connections here in Dubai too that I reached out to, and we started collaborating, and they started sending me more contacts too. And then I was able to create a whole tour out of that here in Dubai too. And oh my goodness, am I so happy to be here. This is amazing. This is my first time in Dubai playing. I have been before on vacation, but it's changed a lot since I've been here too, because I was here back when I was, I think, 13 years old or even younger. And,
well, we're delighted. I mean, we welcome a lot of guests to the region, but you're the first from the classical guitar world.
Oh, wow,
And you
great.
reached out, and we, you know, I think it was around 6 months ago, and we started discussing the idea. It was, you know, very, very privileged that you chose to reach out to us.
Oh, I mean, I'm just so happy to be here. I mean, this is such a joy and privilege for me to be here.